Hello, it is I, W. Hansen, back at you with my incredibly unwieldy and impractical identity concealment device, which I don't even know why I use this mask because I literally advertised my other channel where my face is fully shown, but I don't know. I just keep doing I like wearing the mask. Anyway, I am here to cover the latest piece of media from Star Wars, which is the Ahsoka show. Now there's been only 3 episodes of this show so far, so I'm only covering those. If the future episodes drastically change my opinion of the show, I'll make a new video just about that, but this is my thoughts based on what we have so far. So I'm just going to get right into it. As you saw the title, which basically sums up my opinion on the show. This show it's a good show, but only at surface level. So let me kind of explain what that means. So like superficially speaking, it is a good show. It is well filmed, well acted, and it's an interesting adventure which leads from the Mandoverse after Return of the Jedi era to the sequel trilogy era. It brings in some characters from Rebels. It has some nice action sequences, although I'll talk more about the action later. And it is just like generally a nice classic Star Wars adventure. But that is only when you're just not looking too deep into it, because when you do, the show has a lot of flaws. So, starting right away with the villains, which the first episode does start with the villains, so I guess that's fitting. Essentially, there are, besides Thrawn, which is kind of like, I guess, the end point of where the show is headed, there are 3 main villains of the show. There's Morgan Elsbeth, and there are the 2 Sith Lords. Honestly, I can't remember their names. There's the one who is he's the male one. He's played by a actor who passed away recently. And then there is the other Sith who just will not blink under any circumstances. Her eyes stay open. I don't know how the actor does it, but it really is quite astonishing. And so all these villains have a common goal, getting to Thrawn, but their backstory, I mean, we know a little bit about Morgan Elsbeth from The Mandalorian, from her appearance in The Mandalorian Season 2, where Ahsoka also first appeared. But and we find out in this show that she was a Night Sister, which is pretty interesting, but they don't really delve into that. And the 2 Sith Lords, we know from like background information on the show that they were former Jedi, but I hope that in the future episodes that come out, they delve deeper into their backstories and their like true motivations and the relationship between the 2 Siths, because they just kind of go along well with each other, which there's nothing wrong with that, but there's just not any complexity to the relationship between the 2 of them. And I especially find the master interesting, who's we haven't gotten a lot of him so far in the show. We've gotten most of the one who doesn't blink, and so I'm really interested in his character. I like the way he is acted. He definitely has like a nice presence on screen, but just we haven't gotten any real development from any of the villains yet in this show, besides the whole Night Sister thing. So that's something I'm hoping they will improve on in future episodes, because if they don't, I'll just think of the villains of this show as just kind of a dud, even though it is cool to watch them on screen. But then moving on from the villains to the actual lead of the show, Ahsoka, who's played by Rosario Dawson. And honestly, I think I liked how Rosario Dawson played her in the Mandalorian Season 2 episode. I don't know, there's just something about that. Maybe it was just the novelty of seeing Ahsoka in live action for the first time. But I honestly think that she might be one of the weakest parts of the show, because she is the lead of the show, but she doesn't really have any kind of inner struggles or anything, and she's like completely emotionless in the show. She never, I don't really know how to put it into words. She's really chill all the time. And I'm know she's older in this show, she's growing wiser, more mature, but she just feels like a completely different character from the one portrayed in the Clone Wars and Rebels. Like none of that like charm or like naivety or kind of like the mischief or the how energetic she was. It just she feels completely different, and she really her only kind of like stake in the story emotionally in the show um mentoring Sabine, which Sabine as a character in the show has had more development and shows more emotion, but in a show called Ahsoka, I want to see Ahsoka. I want to see her develop and grow and change throughout it, and she's gone through pretty much none of that besides not wanting to mentor Sabine and then mentoring Sabine. That is pretty much her only character arc in the show, and I really want to see her reaction to Darth Vader's fate in Return of the Jedi, because we haven't gotten anything from that yet. Not even in Mandalorian season 2 there was a brief nod to Anakin, which was nice, but we haven't gotten any of her thoughts on Anakin's redemption. Like, what was did she regret things? Did she wish she could have seen him one last time when he went back to being Anakin Skywalker instead of Darth Vader? She didn't mention any of that. I think Anakin is only mentioned once in the show so far, and that's it. I know there's going to be another time in the trailer, but I don't. I just wish Ahsoka had more to do in the show than just be kind of just kind of standing there talking, mentoring Sabine, and getting from point A to point B the entire time. In terms of the other characters from Rebels, there's Sabine Wren, there's General Hare, there's the I do know her name, I just can't recall it right now because my brain is broken. So I do enjoy their presence on screen. Sabine Wren I found just a little bit annoying, particularly in the first 2 episodes, not as much the third, but maybe that's like kind of how like brash and rebellious she is, but maybe that is part of her characterization in Rebels too, because I'll get to the stuff about Rebels later, but I have not seen a lot of the Rebels stuff, so I am only here on information from YouTube and researching and watching a video by Star Wars Theory explaining kind of the background information you need to know before the show. So I do know several events in Rebels, like particularly the storyline with Ahsoka finding out that Anakin is Darth Vader. But that's mostly it, really. So it might be maybe people who have actually watched all throughout Rebels and have more background information on these characters would enjoy them coming to live action a lot more. But in terms of me, I just don't really have any connection to them, and that is another that is a issue with the show. When you have a show is supposed to stand on its own, even though it is part of a larger universe, even though it is following up an animated show, it still needs to stand on its own. And if I can't really connect with the Rebels characters that much in this show without having seen their previous outing, then that's, in my book, that is not a good sign for your characters. Okay, well, I said I was going to go into the Rebel stuff later, but I pretty much covered everything I wanted to do. So, with our next topic, so I haven't really seen anyone talk about this. Maybe it's just something that I took from the show so far, but I noticed that a couple of the issues I have with the show are similar to issues I had with another show which came from Marvel somewhat recently, which is Secret Invasion. Now, Secret Invasion as a show I did enjoy. I was planning on making a video on it at one point, but then I was just like, nah. So, Secret Invasion, I accept that it is a very heavily flawed show, and I do think it kind of went off the rails with the finale, but I still did enjoy it. And the first episode I really did enjoy. The second episode I enjoyed pretty well. Same with the third episode, and then it just it went down a bit. But I think one of the major issues with Secret Invasion is that it Not that it moves at a slow pace, because I don't mind when things move at a slow pace. Some things do need to move at a slow pace. But okay, it's not the slow pace, it's the sluggishness of it. Like, I'm not sure. Okay, let me illustrate. So, throughout the show, they're saying that there's the Skrull leader, Gravik, and he is going to invade Earth, and he has this whole plan to start World War III. And they keep saying that, and we know that there's this urgent threat out there. Gravik is going to start World War III and eliminate humanity, but it takes forever for that to get going. Like, the plot never kicks into high gear. And it is the same for Ahsoka. They're saying if these bad guys find Thrawn, it will start another war. And then through all of these first 3 episodes, they say if these bad guys fight Thrawn, it'll start another war, and it'll be terrible, and Thrawn will return. And so, but like, we never really, like, as an audience, we never actually feel that urgency to get to Thrawn and Ezra. We're not like, please get there. We're just kind of watching the characters slowly move forward along the plot, which connects again to my main like summary of the show, which is that it is good, but on a surface level. It's like on the surface level, you're like, yeah, their characters are going on an adventure, and they're going on the pieces of the adventure that they need to go on. The plot is moving forward, but there's no like depth, and we don't get those emotions that we should be getting from the issue at hand, from the threat that is out there in the galaxy. We are not like we should be feeling the stakes of the story the same way that the characters are. But even so, it doesn't even feel like the characters are feeling the stakes of the story as much, because they're just slowly, quietly talking in rooms, and Ahsoka is completely emotionless. The most interesting parts with Ahsoka in the show are like the brief times where she actually does get some character building, which is not often, and when she's fighting. I do like her fighting sequences in the show more than I like any of the other like sequences when other characters are fighting other characters, but still, like, I want actual development from this character, you know? So, moving on from the issues related to the Secret Invasion, so as most audience members of this show know, this show is a it is a critical piece of the Mandoverse, which is kind of the transition period from Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens. And this is kind of where this is leading to where the Mandoverse has been really headed this entire time. And there's been Moff Gideon stuff, but that's really just the Mandalorian's villain. And the main direction of the Mandoverse right now is that Thrawn is going to return, and this will lead to the Empire rebuilding, and it will lead to the First Order becoming a thing, and it will lead to the fall of the New Republic and everything in The Force Awakens. And some of the ideas around the New Republic, like how they're not really that good of a government, even I kind of found the scene in episode 3 where General is trying to get help from the New Republic. I didn't really, it just felt, I was excited to see Mon Mothma again because I loved her in her arc in Andor. I love everything about Andor. I just love Andor. But I didn't really like the way she was handled in that scene in this show, because she just goes along with everything the other Senate leaders are saying, which is they're just doing nothing. They're doing absolutely nothing. And the New Republic is not a good government. And I like some of those ideas explored in The Mandalorian season 3. Although I didn't like how they completely detracted from what is supposed to be the main plot of that season. But it's just, it doesn't feel like this is a cohesive narrative yet that we are like super invested in. Like, hopefully the future episodes of this show will get us more invested in that narrative, but it feels like we still have a while to go before we really like start to feel that plot kick into high gear. But even so, it's hard to feel the urgency of this plot, like the stakes of like trying to prevent another war, when we already know another war is going to happen. We've seen the sequel trilogy. We know that the First Order will rise and the New Republic will fall. We already know that this thing is not headed in a good direction. So the only thing keeping us on board for this Mandoverse is the current characters like Mando, Bo-Katan, and Ahsoka and Sabine, and like seeing where they're at and seeing what they will do to handle this. But that is it, because the actual, and also seeing Thrawn return for the, I do have Heir to the Empire and I'm planning on reading it, but I've had so much other stuff to read in that time, so I haven't gotten to it yet. But for the ones who do know a lot about Thrawn, seeing him return is also like one of the only things keeping us on board, you know? So that's my thoughts on the Mandoverse at the moment. And okay, so another issue is, I have mentioned the action sequences before and how some of them I really do like when Ahsoka is fighting, like the one in episode 2 at that junkyard. That was a particular standout, and also the one in like the opening one at episode 1, that was, I love that. But aside from that, the action in the show feels kind of awkward. Like, it's not exactly a feeling I can pinpoint, but there's just something that feels like, it just feels weird. Like the one where Sabine is fighting the apprentice Sith Lord at the end of episode 1, it just felt really awkwardly staged. It didn't feel like real fighting. And not in the way in like the prequels, where the prequels definitely don't feel like real fighting, but at least they're really fun to watch without the acrobatics. The fighting in this show, besides Ahsoka's action sequences, just feel awkward. And what was another one I was good? Also these, oh yeah, the starship chase in the third episode. I did enjoy parts of it, but also like, and I did enjoy when Ahsoka like went out of the ship to like go on the surface in that spacesuit. But even so, it still felt awkward, and it didn't feel like the action had any real urgency to it, to like, oh, we gotta get out of this, we have to be bad guys, we have to win up. It just kind of felt like we were watching as it just moved along, you know. So oh yeah, so that kind of wraps up some of the individual categories I wanted to cover. What I just really, my real issue with the show is the lack of depth, and I hope that more depth is added in the future episodes, because like, as I've said, superficially, this show is good so far, and I do enjoy watching it. Like if I'm at a friend's house, I mean, none of my in real life friends like are huge Star Wars fans, but if I'm like in that like made up scenario, if I'm at a friend's house and they're like, "Hey, let's watch Ahsoka," I'd be like, "Sure, let's watch Ahsoka." But still, like, I don't feel any real, I haven't felt a real genuine connection to the show yet, and that is what I'm hoping the future episodes will do. I am hoping they dig deeper into the characters. I am hoping they further develop Ahsoka. I am hoping Ahsoka shows some actual emotion, and I am hoping that Ahsoka starts to show signs, just at least a few signs of her old self, her old like energetic, enthusiastic self, because I really enjoyed that in the parts of the Clone Wars that I have seen. I have seen parts of the Clone Wars, and it's kind of hard to get through all of those seasons, because I have other stuff to do. But yeah, so I think covering a lot of my issues with the show kind of paints a picture that I'm that like a more negative picture of the show than I think I'd like to have. I am enjoying it so far, and I will tune in for the future episodes, but as of now, there are a lot of flaws to it. So that is my review of the first 3 episodes of Ahsoka. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.